I want to give a little introduction to the scripture that Guillermo will be preaching on today. And as I always do, I want to start in the general and bring it into the particular. New Testament, of course, 27 books as we know it, 27 books. Those first 4 books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark is the oldest, but it's the second of the 4 books. I read where Matthew and Luke borrowed a great deal of their stuff from Mark. So you'll find stuff in Matthew and Luke that's in Mark. In fact, I read where the 600 and some verses in Matthew, 600 of them are in Mark. But that doesn't take anything away from the impact in the scriptures. Matthew is writing to a Jewish audience. He's preaching to a Jewish audience. And so he gives a lot of the background. He begins by telling Jesus' genealogy all the way to Joseph and Mary. And in that second chapter, we read where the birth of Jesus and the visit of the wise men. In that third chapter, we read where Jesus and his family goes to Egypt. The fourth chapter, he is baptized by John the Baptist. And then he goes into the desert. In the 5th chapter, he begins to take some disciples. James, John, Simon, Peter, Andrew. And then chapters 5, 6, 7, and into 8, he tells that very famous Sermon on the Mount. 8, he starts picking up some more disciples. He does some healing. He's gotten a name from where he's doing his ministry. And that brings us to today's scripture, chapter 9. He has come across yet another of the disciples. And with that, I invite you to follow along with me as I read today's passage from the Gospel according to Matthew. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and were sitting with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard this, Jesus, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but the sinners." While he was saying these things to them, suddenly a leader of the synagogue came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly, a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she said to herself, if only I touch his cloak, I will be made well." Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. When Jesus came to the leader's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making a commotion, he said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And the report of this spread throughout that district. May God add insight and understanding to the reading of the word.